I know this situation is painful for you, but Lisa is your sister. She's found love and she deserves to be happy. Can't you see that? Lisa chimed in and said she never meant to hurt me, and even though it seemed unfair, she needed her little sister there to support her. She told me I was her best friend. Their words weighed heavily on me. They framed the situation in such a way that I began to doubt my own feelings. My mother continued to ask if I didn't attend, what would other people think? I thought for a second and concluded that this was an important event, and that they would probably think our family was broken. After I said yes to attending the wedding, Lisa reached out and took my hand happily. She told me she loved me. The following days, my parents and Lisa had both congratulated me for deciding to attend, and talked about how mature I was for it. I was all for going to the wedding at this point, but the financial burden was another story. They expected me to spend a fortune on a dress because all the bridesmaids had to wear a certain color, and Lisa had chosen one of the most expensive fabrics in the store for our dress. The other thing that I didn't understand was the fact that she hired this expensive makeup artist, because Lisa wanted us all to look exactly the same for her wedding day. But it didn't stop there. My parents demanded that I pay for flowers, decorations, and even part of the catering. It felt like they were using me as a cash cow, and the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt like I was being taken advantage of. I remember the endless list of expenses they expected me to cover. The dress was the first big purchase. They said it had to be perfect, that I had to look my best. The dress alone cost a small fortune, but I paid for it, thinking it was a necessary sacrifice. Then there were the makeup and hair appointments. They said I had to look flawless, that it was a reflection of our family. Each appointment drained my bank account a little more. The preparations for the wedding were a nightmare. Every step of the way, I felt like I was being forced into something I never asked for. My parents and Lisa would make decisions without consulting me, and then present them as if I had no choice but to agree. They said the photographs for the wedding were crucial, and that I needed to pay for them. They said the cake had to be extravagant, and that I was responsible for the cost. They even said I should contribute to the catering as it was a family event. I gritted my teeth and bore it all. The endless meetings to discuss wedding plans, the constant demands for money, and the constant blame and guilt tripping if I told them that this took a toll on me. I felt like a puppet, controlled by strings pulled by my family. My own feelings and desires were ignored, and I was expected to comply without question. I remember one particularly painful day when I had to meet with the florist. My parents said the flowers were one of the most important parts of the wedding, that they had to be perfect. I sat through hours of discussions about colors, arrangements, and delivery logistics. Each decision felt like another knife in my back, a reminder of how much I was being used. When the florist presented the final bill, my heart sank. It was a crazy amount, and my parents said I had to pay for it. They said it was my duty as the sister of the bride. I also had to attend numerous dress fittings with Lisa. Each session was an exercise in patience, as Lisa insisted on the most expensive options. She said she wanted me to look stunning, that it was important for the photos. I knew it was more about her image than my appearance. Every time I tried to voice my concerns about the costs, I was met with accusations of selfishness. They said I was making it all about me, that I couldn't stand to see Lisa happy. The manipulation was constant, and I began to feel like I was losing my mind. I sat in my bed one night, tallying up the expenses. I realized how much I was being forced to pay for a wedding that wasn't even mine. I decided I had had enough. I would go through with the wedding preparations, but if I was going to pay for all of it, I would make them pay for what they did to me. I planned to ruin their special day in the most spectacular way possible. It was 2 weeks before the wedding when Lisa approached me with a request that caught me off guard. She found me in the kitchen sipping on a cup of tea. She asked if we could talk for a minute, so we sat at the dining room table. She said she was thinking a lot about the wedding, and that there was something really important that she wanted to ask me. I asked her what it was, and she asked me if I could give a speech at the wedding, and told me how it would mean the world to her. I kept a calm appearance on the outside, but on the inside, I was smiling like the Grinch. This was the perfect opportunity to execute my plan, but I couldn't let her see how eager I was. I needed to appear conflicted. I bit my lip, pretending to weigh the request carefully. I asked her if she was sure after everything that happened, and she told me that we've moved past that now, and that she thinks it's important for our family. I agreed to read a speech for her. After she left the room, I felt like I could run up a mountain. The speech would be the perfect time to reveal everything, but for now, I had to play the role of the dutiful sister. I played my part perfectly. I smiled, nodded, and pretended to be the supportive sister. I paid for everything they asked, gritted my teeth through every interaction, and kept my plan a secret. The night before the wedding, I sat down and wrote a letter detailing everything that had happened. I poured my heart out, explaining how I had been manipulated, how much money I had spent, and how deeply they had hurt me. Writing the letter was cathartic. It was my chance to express all the pain, anger, and betrayal I had felt over the past year. I wrote about how John had cheated on me with Lisa, how my parents had sided with them, and how they had manipulated me into attending the wedding. I detailed every expense, every demand, and every moment of emotional pain they had caused. It was a monster of a letter, and I knew it would create chaos when I read it aloud. It was the day before the wedding. Everyone in the house was zooming around doing last-minute preparations. My parents' home had florists, caterers, and family members running around ensuring everything was ready for the big day. So I wouldn't be in the way, I retreated to the guest room upstairs. I had just settled into a chair when I heard voices coming from the room next door. The door was slightly opened, and I recognized John's voice along with that of his best man. Their conversation drew me in, and I couldn't help but listen. "You know," John said, "I always wanted Lisa from the very beginning. She was the one who caught my eye the moment I met her." The best man sounded surprised. "Really? But you were with her sister. How did that happen?" John laughed softly, a sound that now seemed so sinister to me. "Yeah, I was with her sister at first because Lisa wasn't interested in me back then. then, I thought getting close to her family would make her see me differently. There was a pause, filled with the muffled sounds of wedding preparations outside. The best man spoke again. That sounds pretty messed up, man. So all this time, you were just waiting for a chance with Lisa? John's voice grew more serious. Look, I didn't plan for it to happen this way. But when Lisa finally showed some interest, I couldn't resist. It's not like I wanted to hurt anyone. My heart pounded in my chest as I listened to John. He had used me to get closer to my sister, all while pretending to care about me. The betrayal cut even deeper now, knowing that I had been nothing more than a pawn in his game to win Lisa. I stepped back quietly, not wanting to hear more or give up my location. This was the confirmation I needed for the speech tomorrow. I gathered myself and walked back downstairs to keep myself busy. The day of the wedding arrived with all the hype and extravagance my parents and Lisa had carefully planned. The historic mansion where it was held was decorated with flowers in every imaginable color. The decorations were fancy, and the catering staff moved so rehearsed like they were performing choreography. I moved through the crowd, greeting guests with a forced smile. My heart was pounding in my chest. The ceremony had gone off without a hitch, and now we were in the reception hall, a grand room filled with elegantly set tables and a large dance floor. As the reception progressed, the time came for the speeches. I watched as the best man, a longtime friend of John's, took the stage. He was confident and charming, and he easily captured the audience's attention. He began his speech with a few light-hearted jokes about John's past escapades. He got a lot of laughter from the crowd. He then shifted to more heartfelt words. He spoke about John's loyalty and kindness. He said John had always been there for him, and he was grateful to see his friend so happy with Lisa. He praised their love and wished them a lifetime of joy and success together. The guests clapped and cheered as the best man finished his speech. John clapped him on the back, clearly moved by his friend's words. The atmosphere was warm and supportive, filled with the love and admiration of their closest friends and family. Then it was my turn. The moment I had been preparing for had arrived. Lisa looked at me with a hopeful smile. She motioned for me to take the stage. My parents nodded encouragingly, clearly expecting me to deliver a speech that would uphold the family's image. I stood up, taking a deep breath to steady myself. As I walked to the front of the room, I felt a rush of adrenaline. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. I reached for the microphone and glanced around the room, taking in the expectant faces of the guests. I tapped the microphone, and it screeched. The feedback filled the room. I felt my hand trembling as I pulled out the letter and began to read. Hello everyone, I began. For those who don't know me, I'm Lisa's sister. First, I want to congratulate Lisa and John on their marriage. It's clear that they share a special bond, and today has been a beautiful celebration of their love. There were smiles and nods from the audience. I saw Lisa relax a little, her eyes shining with what she thought was sisterly support. But, I continued, there's more to this story that I feel I should share with you all today. You see, the journey to this wedding has been filled with a lot of pain and betrayal, at least for me. The room grew quiet, the smiles fading from the guests' faces. I could see Lisa's expression change. She looked confused and scared about what was about to come out of my mouth next. My parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats, clearly not expecting this turn. I took a deep breath and began to read from the letter I had prepared. My parents, Lisa and John, have tried their best to keep this a secret, but John and I were together first. He cheated on me with Lisa, and later on I found out directly from him that he just used to get closer to my sister. This wedding has been a disaster. I was manipulated by my parents, by my greedy ex, and my wolf in sheep's clothing sister, to pay for everything, and I mean that literally. The flowers you see, the cake you see, the caterers here, everything was paid for by me. Against my will, may I add. Lisa and my parents have been nothing but manipulative and remorseless devils in this, taking every chance possible to bleed my pockets dry, to mask my feelings. When I originally told them I wouldn't attend the wedding, my parents said they would disown me. Celebrate this marriage if you want, everyone, but just know you're celebrating lies and deceit. What you see today is all fake. There was more, but that was the gist of my speech. The room was deathly silent as I spoke this, each word like a nail in the coffin. The more I talked, the more I could see the shock and disbelief on the faces of the guests, the anger and defensiveness in my parents' eyes, and the horror and guilt in Lisa and John's expressions. By the time I finished, the room had erupted into chaos. Guests were shouting. My parents were the first to react visibly. My father stood up in disbelief. He tried to shout over everyone, saying that everything I had said was a lie. It was a desperate attempt to save face. My mother was in tears, shaking her head and pleading with the guests to ignore what I had just said, and Lisa and John looked utterly devastated. Some of the guests were yelling, demanding answers from my parents and Lisa. Others were trying to comfort Lisa, while some just looked on in stunned silence, unsure of what to do. The atmosphere was thick and the celebratory mood was completely shattered. One of John's relatives, an older woman with a stern face, stood up and demanded to know why my parents had allowed this to happen. She said that the family should be ashamed of their behavior and that this wedding was a disgrace. Her words seemed to ignite a spark among the guests, and soon more people were voicing their outrage, turning against my parents and Lisa. I didn't stick around to see the full aftermath. I walked out, my head held high, and left the venue. Once outside, I took a deep breath of the cool evening air. I felt a sense of freedom and relief, but also sadness for what had been lost. I blocked my parents and sister on all social media and sent them a final message. I told them that I never wanted to see them again.